What kind of information do recruiters actually have access to when, they do your background checks, etc.? At this point, I mean, it seems like you get a Social Security number, you get any information, you can find out how much debt the person's in, like the real, their past taxes.
They could. Well, okay, so let me answer that in two ways. I'll answer it in the what they can, and then what they will. Okay. When it comes to the what they can, some large companies will employ a background checking service, and they will do that for a variety of different reasons, and will not necessarily do the whole shoot and match, right? If they're going to go do it, they're going to do it for the following: criminal, right? And some background checking services do national criminal or local criminal. Credit is the big one, And that's particularly if you're going after a financial position. Sometimes with these large employers, again, they're risk averse, right? They don't want to be negligent in their hiring. So they might have, here's a tip for you. If you have a shady credit situation, for whatever reason, particularly if it's a spouse and they messed up your credit or whatever, here's the thing of it. Just like when you have to deal with a bank or a creditor, the recruiters, the HR people, they're human beings too. They'll listen to your story. Just don't hide it, okay? If you know they're about to do a background check and there's something up with your credit or whatever, there's just some skeleton there, fess it up immediately. Immediately and tell them the story, like, okay, why? Because it's a credibility thing. I gotta tell you, half the way of you getting your interview is for people to trust you. If there's anything in your background that is kind of anything, just odd things in your story, it's better to share than not share, because if you don't share and they find out, they think you lied, and then it's just a credibility issue, right? So it's better to do that. Do they go into your taxes? No, that's just not. It's mostly credit. It's criminal. Those are really the two major things. If they're going to do anything, they would do that.
But especially with the economy the way it's been, a lot of people's credits have been really screwed
up. This is where the story comes in. You feel you should divulge it in advance, and not in the first interview. Not in the first interview.
No, at the end
when they say, "Hey, we're going to run a credit check." Yes, I'm happy to have you do that. Before you do it, let me let you know something. This is what you're going to find. Then they'll be fine with it. And I'm paying it off, or da da da. And I was out of work for a while, and whatever. You're right. With this economy, for sure. But say it. Don't not say it.
How do you deal with the whole salary requirement issue?
I have a speech on that.
What is the strategy for dealing with that?
I have a wonderful little speech on that. Ready? Okay. This is definitely a pad of paper worthy kind of a comment. I literally should tape this because I say this all the time. I actually have a specific strategy that you should use. And before you write, there's a little, like a phrase that actually two phrases I'm going to give you, but let me have back into it and explain the concept. So let's use the real estate analogy. Somebody's buying a house, somebody's selling a house. Somebody wants to pay as little as possible, somebody wants to get as much as possible. It's the exact same thing in your job search. You're trying to get as much. They're trying to pay as fine. Here's the deal. And I have actually taken this concept and I've preached it to both sides, okay? So there's an HR version of what I'm telling you about, because I've actually preached it to HR people. So it goes like this. If you give the employer two numbers, I'm seeking between X and Y. I'm making up I'm going to say 100 to 120. I'm just pulling it out of the air, okay? My range is 100 to 120. What are they going to offer you? Yeah, you're so smart. 100. That's it. They will not go higher than that. They will they will do as little as it's business, right? They're trying to do a good business people. So they go for as low. And if they are silly enough to say, oh, the range for this position is 100 to 120, you know where I'm going, what are you going to be expecting? 120, okay? Because you're human beings. This is just what we do. There's a psychology to this as much as there is anything else. So, in light of all that, here is the strategy and here's what you want to write down. I'm going to give you this phrase, okay? And then I'll unpack it. And the phrase revolves around one number. And this number is what I call your happy dance number. It's not your minimum number, but it's not a ridiculous number either. It's an appropriately high number for you. And in this case, I'm going to use the 120, okay? So here's what you say. So when the employer says, what are you looking for? Here's what you say. I'm seeking a total cash compensation package in the $120,000 range. I'll say it again. I'm seeking a total cash compensation package in the $120,000 range. Let me explain why this works, okay? If you are nervous about being overcompensated for the role, which is why, right, a lot of people don't want to give too high of a number. Oh, well, they're going to screen me out, right? Because I've priced myself out of the market. If you say I'm looking for 120 total cash comp package, and the job actually pays less than that, let's say it pays 100, okay? Here's what the employer is going to say to you, and I do it all the time as a recruiter. I watch myself do this. I mean, this is very from the street, okay? It's real advice. What a recruiter would say to you is, oh, we would pause, we'd clear our throat, we wait about 3 seconds, we go, well, the highest that this role can actually pay is 100. Do you have any flexibility? And you'll then say, well, as I mentioned, I'm seeking a total cash comp package in that range. And here's your second follow-up sentence, okay, ready? If that's the case, if in that scenario, you would then say, okay, what can we, not you, what can we do to get me closer to my target number? What can we do to get me closer to my target number? And in that case, the employer will say, oh, okay, and they'll start selling you. They'll sell you on the benefits and the 401k match and the whole nine. Yeah.
Well, you're talking about the interview stage,
yeah.
But what about just the submitting resume
It's
stage?
exactly the same thing. In the bottom of your cover letter, because they've asked you for salary requirements, I'm seeking a total cash compensation package in the $100,000. That's it. Stop.
Okay.
And then if it's within a ballpark, they will not screen you out, and they'll actually say to you, I noticed you put 120, but actually 100 is really what we're going for. Here's the thing too, in case those of you are sitting out and saying, well, yeah, but what if it's a lot less than that? I really don't want to be screened out. Guess what? If it's really that much less, it's not your job anyway. There is an actual range below which it's really not your level. Because people pay based upon the level of the position. So once you get beyond a certain amount, it's like, you know what, I'm glad that they screened me out because it's really not the right fit for me, okay? And then the other way is of course true. If you shoot high and you're in their range, they'll say that. If you say 120 and the position pays between 110 and 130, they'll just say, okay, that's great, you're in our range, and they'll write down 120. And that's it. So fine, you take a little bit of a risk to not get the 130, but really, if 120 is your happy dance number, then that should be fine for you anyway. And all they'll do is they'll say you're in their range. Make sense? Okay? Other questions?
Can you talk about strategies for the long-term unemployed? And by long-term, I'm talking years.
Yes.
Things that I've heard include dumbing down my resume, taking off my MBA, looking for a 40% pay cut, like things like that, and how some of the strategies you've been talking about would be
relate to that.
Yeah.
So obviously there's no easy answer. Okay, I'm not going to give a panacea, but I will share some things. And by the way, it really also depends on your brand and where you're going. So for example, I know of some people who've been unemployed for quite a while, where in that time they do a lot of soul searching and say, you know what, I really don't want to do what I've been doing before. Or maybe I don't want to do exactly what I've been doing before. And so what they'll do is they'll pull relevant experience from the back of their resume and put it up front into the branded piece, okay, to really showcase here's what I'm really looking for. And by the way, having a resume like this is one of the first steps. And when I say like this, I just mean very elegant and very, very branded, okay? Because that automatically will help you stand out from the crowd, and it makes people actually take a double take, okay, and actually look at you. Another technique, I don't necessarily recommend this, although I've seen people do it, and I mean, mixed results, but hey, why not try it? Some people have actually taken the dates off of their resume. Now, I do, listen, again, that's not a perfect scenario because recruiters want to see your dates, but you know what? If it gets them to call you and you actually get a chance to talk to them on the phone, it might be worth a shot. The other thing is to list any sort of volunteer experience that you have been doing or anything that you've been doing during that time period and really showcase it, because what they don't want to see is you haven't been doing anything for the last 5 years. They want to see something, community service, volunteering at kids' school, whatever it is. Maybe you've been blogging, maybe you've been doing something, you've been contributing to a group like this, you've chaired a committee, anything. But as long as it encompasses more or less that time, employers are a little more receptive to that. They just want to see you've been active, right? Now, yes, perfect world, they want to see that you continue to be in their tribe and in their lane. That's why this is not a perfect scenario. But I think highlighting things that you've done is really helpful. In terms of the 40% pay cut thing and the dumbing down, the dumbing down thing is, and the 40% pay cut, those two things, those two strategies imply that the only people that are going to hire you are for the jobs that you're less qualified for, or that you want that are underneath your level. And at the end of the day, remember the risk aversion thing? Employers don't want to take a risk and hire somebody who's overqualified for the job. So if anything, you keep going for those positions that really are at your level. If you take it all down, then you're watering your candidacy down. I say leave the MBA on there. I say go for the top salary, and I say don't settle. Because you know what? If you do, and they say to you, well, what was your last compensation? And you tell them, because you really should, and then you end up, taking 40% less, they realize you're a flight risk. They realize that the reason why you're taking that job is just to get the paycheck and benefits, and within 3 to 6 months you're going to be out the door or scratching down their door to get a pay increase. And they're trying to hire somebody, again, risk aversion, who is not a flight risk, who is going to be there for the long term at the right salary. So I say go for the level that you need to go for. It should maybe be a little bit flexible, but I would not recommend the 40%. Yeah.
As far as smaller companies, how do you research what the salary might be for these smaller companies, or what a good salary is? For instance, I am interviewing at a company. I have a third interview tomorrow.
Yep.
And they had asked me what I was looking for,
yep.
And I told them what I had made, because I said I'm flexible.
Yes.
But I don't know their range. They didn't come back and tell me what their range was.
But when you said what you were last making, did it give them cause for pause, or they just said okay?
Not really. They also, some of them come from big companies.
Uh-huh.
This company is about 30 to 50 employees.
Uh-huh.
So I did, and I don't know if I, said something in error. I was like, I understand this is not a corporation. That's
right.
like flexible.
Yeah.
But I don't want to undersell. You know what I mean?
I understand.
I want to know it's fair. How do I know it's fair for them to pay?
So first of all, you don't in that particular case, you don't have to worry about it too much, simply because you've already told them what your last salary was, which you're presuming is higher than what they might want to pay. And so in that case, they're going to feel really badly. They will, if they offer you something that's really way too low. So they're going to try to get it as close. They'll probably be extremely apologetic if they have to say, oh, well, you might do my 120 thing, okay? So you said 120, and they'll like, well, we are kind of small, and we can only do 95, like that. Again, you say, okay, what can we do here? What can you do to get me closer to my target number? Let's talk about benefits, bonuses, stock, anything that will get you closer. So I wouldn't worry so much about that. Understand too, though, in terms of title and salary, that's where things can shift, because smaller companies, they over-title. They tend to over-title. You have a director in a small company versus a director in a large company. One could be making the 120, the other's making 320, right? It just really depends. So titles are just all over the map when it comes to the small versus the large. So that's why it's a little hard, right, to figure it out. And salary.com only goes so far with those things. It's just like, it's just such a big aggregate. Really, it's hard. They don't break it down.
Right.
But
yet equally, I know 2 people who are interviewing at small companies, and they come from major corporations, and they're getting raises. So that's where I don't want to,
Well,
I don't know if I want to, you know, I want to
don't-
put blinders on myself.
Exactly. Go with what you think you're worth. If you want to be flexible, go be flexible. But it is what it is. You came from where you came from. You earned what you earned. They asked you, you told them, and that's it.
Right.
Ball's in their court, and it's for them to come up with a decent offer.
Okay.
And they might shock you. They might actually give you a raise, you know. Because just because they're small doesn't mean they don't have money.
That's what I would
Right?
make that assumption, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look at a venture capital firm, right? Those tend to be pretty small companies, and they don't have money. So, right? You can't really